The mind is also very important in the life of a Christian. The Christian is encouraged to set his mind on the things above. We are also encouraged to direct our mind to know, to investigate, and to seek wisdom and an explanation. Christians should use their minds in all aspects of life and always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. We are to use our minds to experience the reality of the Holy Spirit in order to experience His peace. This peace of God, which surpasses all comprehension, guards both our hearts and our minds. Even the act of worship, both prayer and singing, should involve both the spirit and the mind. The Bible encourages people to acquire knowledge. The book of Proverbs in the Old Testament gives practical advice for living, raising children, and making good choices versus bad choices. Many of the verses discuss the importance of acquiring knowledge and wisdom, even to the degree of choosing knowledge over riches. Faith is of utmost importance to the Christian, but the Bible doesn't say to limit your belief to faith alone. In fact, it commands us to add first moral excellence, then second knowledge. Daniel, one of the greatest examples of faith, who had an amazing prayer life, was also a man of great knowledge and intelligence, and used this ability to witness to Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. Solomon, in his prayers to God, asked for wisdom and knowledge, both of which God granted to him. Biblical faith is based upon knowledge and sound doctrine. God wants believers to be knowledgeable, especially regarding their faith. A lack of knowledge leads to apostasy and destruction. As God Himself said to Hosea, "My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge." A zeal for God is not sufficient to please Him, since many Jews have this zeal, although it is misplaced since it is not in accordance with knowledge. The Bible encourages believers to have a knowledge-based faith, built upon sound biblical doctrine. When Paul preached the gospel, he did it through reasoning from the scriptures and not an appeal to blind faith. Paul, in his letters, told believers to do away with childish thinking and reasoning. Christians are advised to set an example for others in teaching by modeling integrity, seriousness, and soundness of speech. The physician Luke, in his prologue to his gospel, revealed that he determined the truth through careful investigation. It seemed fitting for me as well, having investigated everything carefully from the beginning, to write it out for you in consecutive order, most excellent Theophilus, so that you might know the exact truth about the things you have been taught. Luke chapter 1 verses 3-4. What did Jesus teach? Jesus extended the first of the 10 Commandments to love the Lord not only with our hearts and souls, but also our minds. Jesus almost always taught using parables and examples. He did this specifically so that people would think about what he was saying. In fact, in many instances, Jesus would ask people what they thought of what he said. When Jesus was resurrected from the dead, he explained the scriptures to his disciples and opened their minds, so that they could see how he fulfilled the messianic prophecies. Conclusion. The Bible teaches a rational faith, based upon knowledge and refined through testing. Christians are encouraged to use their minds in all aspects of life, including our spiritual life, prayer and worship. God values truthfulness to a high degree and wants us to know the truth about His creation, the nature of His being in His scriptures. Ultimately, God wants all people to come to the knowledge of the truth of His salvation through Jesus Christ, so that they may spend eternity with Him in the new creation. Modern examples of intelligent Christians. References. Is God real? Does science answer, is there a God? Published by Evidence for God from Science. By Rich Deem. Part 1 of the introduction for non-believers showed that strong atheism contradicts its own worldview by believing the universe has a natural cause despite the lack of observational evidence for such a belief. However, since there is no direct observational evidence regarding the origin of the universe, why should one believe the equally unobserved hypothesis that God created the universe? Although there is no direct evidence for the cause of the universe, we now have a fair amount of knowledge about the early history of the universe and the laws that govern it. which provide us with indirect evidence that a super-intelligent agent designed the universe. In order to keep this essay brief, much of the supporting information will not be included. However, you can click the links to the full-length articles for the details. Detecting the non-physical. Atheists tend to fall into one of two camps. First, are the atheists who say that science cannot have anything to say about the existence of God. However, recently, the new atheists think that they can prove the non-existence of God through science. Although science cannot directly detect God, it can examine his creation. Consider the non-physical concept of love. We all accept that love exists, although it cannot be directly measured by science. However, if we observe those who love each other, we can indirectly measure the affect of love on these individuals' actions. For example, we might notice that they spend a lot of time together, they are constantly helping each other in various ways, and they come to each other's defense when the other is threatened in some way. Although we cannot measure love directly, we can measure the indirect effects of love. Likewise, although we cannot measure God directly, we can examine the universe to detect God's imprint on the physical world. Evidence for design? The best evidence for design can be seen in the nature of the universe and how it came to be. The process of discovery continues, since one of the fundamental properties of the universe, dark energy, or the cosmological constant, was discovered late in the last century. New studies continue to add to our knowledge about the universe and its extremely unlikely makeup. The Big Bang. The Big Bang theory states that the universe arose from a singularity of virtually no size, which gave rise to the dimensions of space and time, in addition to all matter and energy. At the beginning of the Big Bang, the four fundamental forces began to separate from each other. Early in its history, 10 to 10 seconds, the universe underwent a period of short, but dramatic, hyperinflationary expansion. The cause of this inflation is unknown, but was required for life to be possible in the universe. Excess quarks. Quarks and antiquarks combine to annihilate each other. Originally, it was expected that the ratio of quarks and antiquarks to be exactly equal to 1, since neither would be expected to have been produced in preference to the other. If the ratio were exactly equal to 1, the universe would have consisted solely of energy, not very conducive to the existence of life. However, recent research showed that the charge parity violation could have resulted naturally given the three known masses of quark families. However, this just pushes fine-tuning a level down to ask why quarks display the masses they have. Those masses must be fine-tuned in order to achieve a universe that contains any matter at all. Large, just right-sized universe. Even so, the universe is enormous compared to the size of our solar system. Isn't the immense size of the universe evidence that humans are really insignificant, contradicting the idea that a God concerned with humanity created the universe? It turns out that the universe could not have been much smaller than it is in order for nuclear fusion to have occurred during the first 3 minutes after the Big Bang. Without this brief period of nucleosynthesis, the early universe would have consisted entirely of hydrogen. Likewise, the universe could not have been much larger than it is, or life would not have been possible. If the universe were just 1 part in 10 larger, the universe would have collapsed before life was possible. Since there are only 10 baryons in the universe, this means that an addition of just 10 baryons, about the mass of a grain of sand, would have made life impossible. The universe is exactly the size it must be for life to exist at all. Early evolution of the universe. Cosmologists assume that the universe could have evolved in any of a number of ways, and that the process is entirely random. Based upon this assumption, nearly all possible universes would consist solely of thermal radiation, no matter. Of the tiny subset of universes that would contain matter, a small subset would be similar to ours. A very small subset of those would have originated through inflationary conditions. Therefore, universes that are conducive to life are almost always created by fluctuations into the, say, miraculous states, according to atheist cosmologist Dr. L. Dyson. Just right laws of physics. The laws of physics must have values very close to those observed or the universe does not work well enough to support life. What happens when we vary the constants? The strong nuclear force, which holds atoms together, has a value such that when the two hydrogen atoms fuse, 0.7% of the mass is converted into energy. If the value were 0.6%, then a proton could not bond to a neutron, and the universe would consist only of hydrogen. If the value were 0.8%, then fusion would happen so readily that no hydrogen would have survived from the Big Bang. Other constants must be fine-tuned to an even more stringent degree. The cosmic microwave background varies by 1 part in 100,000. If this factor were slightly smaller, the universe would exist only as a collection of diffuse gas, since no stars or galaxies could ever form. If this factor were slightly larger, the universe would consist solely of large black holes. Likewise, the ratio of electrons to protons cannot vary by more than 1 part in 10, or else electromagnetic interactions would prevent chemical reactions. In addition, if the ratio of the electromagnetic force constant to the gravitational constant were greater by more than 1 part in 10, then electromagnetism would dominate gravity, preventing the formation of stars and galaxies. If the expansion rate of universe were 1 part in 10 less than what it is, then the universe would have already collapsed. The most recently discovered physical law, the cosmological constant or dark energy, is the closest to zero of all the physical constants. In fact, a change of only 1 part in 10 would completely negate the effect. The physical constants required to produce carbon and oxygen in stars is also narrowly fine-tuned. A value for Hoyle state 2% higher than the measured value would prevent the formation of carbon. A value 2% lower than the measured value would produce lots of carbon, but no oxygen. Both are essential atoms for life. Universal probability bounds. Unlikely things happen all the time. This is the mantra of the anti-design movement. However, there is an absolute physical limit for improbable events to happen in our universe. The universe contains only 10 baryons and has only been around for 13.8 billion years, 10 seconds. Since the smallest unit of time is Planck time, 10 seconds, the lowest probability event that can ever happen in the history of the universe is. So, although it would be possible that 1 or 2 constants might require unusual fine-tuning by chance, it would be virtually impossible that all of them would require such fine-tuning. Some physicists have indicated that any of a number of different physical laws would be compatible with our present universe. However, it is not just the current state of the universe that must be compatible with the physical laws. Even more stringent are the initial conditions of the universe, since even minor deviations would have completely disrupted the process. For example, adding a grain of sand to the weight of the universe now would have no effect. However, adding even this small amount of weight at the beginning of the universe would have resulted in its collapse early in its history. What do cosmologists say? Even though many atheists would like to dismiss such evidence of design, cosmologists know better, and have made statements such as the following, which reveal the depth of the problem for the atheistic worldview. This type of universe, however, seems to require a degree of fine-tuning of the initial conditions that is in apparent conflict with common wisdom. Polarization is predicted. It's been detected and it's in line with theoretical predictions. We're stuck with this preposterous universe. In all of these worlds statistically miraculous, but not impossible, events would be necessary to assemble and preserve the fragile nuclei that would ordinarily be destroyed by the higher temperatures. However, although each of the corresponding histories is extremely unlikely, there are so many more of them than those that evolve without miracles, that they would vastly dominate the livable universes that would be created by Poincare recurrences. We are forced to conclude that in a recurrent world like De Sitter space our universe would be extraordinarily unlikely. Speculative solutions to the design problem. The newest solution to design in the universe is a belief in the multi-universe theory. This theory requires one to believe that there are more universes in existence than the number of all the subatomic particles that exist in our universe. Our universe just happened to be one of the few that is able to support life. Here is what a recent article from Science says about this hypothetical multiverse, spinning off an infinity of other universes. Uncomfortable with the idea that physical parameters like lambda, cosmological constant, are simply lucky accidents, some cosmologists, including Hawking, have suggested that there have been an infinity of Big Bangs going off in a larger multiverse, each with different values for these parameters. Only those values that are compatible with life could be observed by beings such as ourselves. What scientific evidence exists to support the multiverse model? None. Not only is there no evidence, the physics of our own universe requires that we will never be able to obtain any evidence about any other universe, even if it does exist. Even secular websites admit that such ideas amount to nothing more than unfalsifiable metaphysics. Appeals to multiple or parallel cosmoses or to an infinite number of cosmic, Big Bang, crunch oscillations as essential elements of proposed mechanisms are not acceptable in submissions due to a lack of empirical correlation and testability. Such beliefs are without hard physical evidence and must therefore be considered unfalsifiable, currently outside the methodology of scientific investigation to confirm or disprove, and therefore more mathematically theoretical and metaphysical than scientific in nature. Recent cosmological evidence also suggests insufficient mass for gravity to reverse continuing cosmic expansion. The best cosmological evidence thus far suggests the cosmos is finite rather than infinite in age. According to Paul Davies, whether it is God, or man, who tosses the dice, turns out to depend on whether multiple universes really exist or not. If instead, the other universes are relegated to ghost worlds, we must regard our existence as a miracle of such improbability that it is scarcely credible. Theistic solution: measurable design. On the other hand, the deist or theist says that God designed the universe with just the right laws of physics. Note that neither the multiverse nor the God hypothesis is testable. However, the God hypothesis is much simpler. The naturalistic explanation requires the presence of a complicated, unproved super-universe that has the capacity to randomly spew out an infinite number of universes with different laws of physics. How does this hypothetical super-universe know how to do this? Why would it even want to do this? Ultimately, why should there be any universe at all? None of these questions are logically explained by naturalism. Only an intelligent being would be motivated and expected to produce any kind of universe such as what we see. If we use Occam's razor, which states that one should use the simplest logical explanation for any phenomenon, we would eliminate the super-universe, multi-universe explanation in favor of the simpler God-designed universe model. The evidence for design in the universe and biology is so strong that Antony Flew, a longtime proponent of atheism, renounced his atheism in 2004 and now believes that the existence of a creator is required to explain the universe and life in it. Likewise, Frank Tipler, professor of the Department of Mathematics at Tulane University, and a former atheist, not only became a theist, but is now a born-again Christian because of the laws of physics. Who created God? A common objection to the God hypothesis is the problem of how God came to be. If everything has a cause, why does God get an exception? The problem with such reasoning is that it assumes that time has always existed. In reality, time is a construct of this universe and began at the initiation of the Big Bang. A God who exists outside the time constraints of the universe is not subject to cause and effect. So, the idea that God has always existed and is not caused follows logically from the fact that the universe and time itself was created at the Big Bang. The Bible makes these exact claims: that God has always existed and that God created time, along with the entire universe, being described as an expanding universe. Why can't the universe be uncaused? Of course, it is possible that the universe is uncaused. However, there is a tremendous amount of evidence that contradicts that idea. See Part 1. So, an atheist who claims to live by logic and evidence cannot arbitrarily assign eternity to a universe that is clearly temporal. Conclusion: no, God has not left his name etched onto the surface of planets. However, there is abundant evidence that the universe was designed by super-intelligent agent, who purposed that the universe should exist and be capable of supporting advanced life. The design of the universe is just one line of evidence that tells us that God is real and created the universe. The design of the Earth and solar system is also quite impressive. Likewise, chemistry and physics preclude the possibility that life evolved on Earth. In addition, human beings are remarkably different from every other animal on Earth, suggesting a departure from naturalistic processes. Continue to Part 3. Is Christianity true? References.